All right, let's talk about history. But not just what happened. We're going to get into how the story gets told. And, maybe more importantly, what happens when someone decides to just leave a crucial piece out of the puzzle.
We tend to think of history as this solid thing, right? Like a timeline of events that's just set in stone. But have you ever really stopped to think about how we know this stuff? How are these incredible stories from our past actually pieced together? And that leads to the real kicker, doesn't it? It's not just about how the story is written, it's about who is holding the pen. Because let's be real, the person telling the story, well, they have all the power to shape it. And that can change absolutely everything.
So, with that in mind, I want to dive into a fascinating modern case study. There's this website, habeshahistory.com. It's set up to be a huge digital resource, a go-to place for the history of the Horn of Africa.
And they've been at it for over 2 years now, publishing all sorts of research and articles. It's actually built up a bit of a reputation, It's become a spot people check out if they're into the deep, rich history of that region. And at first glance, it looks like a really solid, valuable project.
I mean, just look at the stuff they cover. They've got articles on the ancient port of Adulis, the city of Matara. They do these deep dives into Aksumite architecture, the kingdom of DMT, even the Dalak Sultanate. You look at that list and you think, wow, these guys are covering everything. It seems super thorough, right?
But what if they're not? What if there's something missing? A critique has popped up that points to, well, a kind of ghost in the machine. A huge hole in their archive that, frankly, makes you wonder what their real goal is here.
And this is where it gets wild. On one hand, you've got this massive, impressive list of topics we just talked about. And on the other, a single word, a single glaring omission, the city of Kubar.
Okay, so you're probably thinking, Kubar, why is this such a big deal? Well, here's why. Kubar wasn't just some random town. It's believed to have been the last capital city of the entire great Aksumite civilization. It was the crucial transition point, the very place from which the ruling elite moved inland when the empire's power started to shift.
And this is where the accusation gets really serious. The critics aren't saying, oh, maybe they just forgot, or hey, maybe it's on their to-do list. No. The claim is that leaving Kubar out was a choice, that this was done completely on purpose. If you search their entire site for the word Kubar, you know what you find? Zero. A big, fat nothing. For over 2 years, they've been publishing about Aksumite history, and they have never once mentioned its supposed final capital. So you really have to ask, why? And the critique? Well, it does not hold back. It flat out accuses the website of, and this is a direct quote, intentionally misleading its audience away from true knowledge for a few hastily synthesized articles. Whoa. I mean, that's not just an academic disagreement. That's an accusation of actively trying to deceive people. So again, why would they do that? Well, according to the critique, it's all about hijacking the narrative. It's about taking the story of what happened and twisting it into something fundamentally different. This is basically a fight over who came from whom, a battle over the historical family tree, if you will. The argument is that by erasing Kubar, you can push one story about what happened after Aksum and completely bury another, more established one.
Okay, so let's break this down. The story the website seems to be telling is this. Aksum's power fades, and the action moves to the Dalak Islands, focusing on a coastal identity. But if you put Kubar back in the picture, everything changes. The story then becomes, the Aksumite elite move from their capital, Kubar, inland, which creates a direct, unbroken line to the next great power, the Zagwe dynasty. See? By taking Kubar out of the story, you literally snap that historical connection in half.
All right, I get it. At this point, you might be thinking, okay, this is some deep academic squabble over an ancient city. Why should I care? Well, let's zoom out, because this is about so much more than just one website. History isn't dead and buried, It is alive. These stories are the very foundation of who we are today. They shape our identities, our cultures. They tell entire nations and communities who they are and where they come from. And what this whole thing shows is just how fragile that story can be. It really is like a giant jigsaw puzzle. You pull out one single, seemingly small piece, like the city of Kubar, and suddenly, the entire picture you thought you knew just becomes something else entirely. And that brings us full circle, right back to that first big question. If history isn't just a simple list of facts, if it's a story that gets told, then the biggest question of all is, who do we trust to tell that story? Who gets to be the narrator?